And thanks, Kevin, for inviting me for this event. It's always good to talk to HR practitioners because you are responsible for the only and most important resource in an organization, which is people. Every organization is about people. Doesn't matter. And I always tell CEOs, if the head of HR is not your right-hand person, then you will fail. And sure enough, many CEOs have failed because they never paid attention to people. I mean, if you look at even the book of Genesis, the earth was created by God for who? For people. Your first lesson in economics, those of you who did economics, was development is about people. You make progress so that people can progress. Okay? So, when was the earth and the universe created? Let's begin from the beginning. Allah, mbona mnanyamaza? When was the earth created? And the universe? The book of Genesis says, in the beginning. When was that? That's been scientifically proven. When was that? 13.8 billion years ago. That's been scientifically proven. Okay? So, what do you think happened from that 14 billion years ago to the present? The human race, this current species, the Homo sapiens, when did they arrive here? Remember the evolution. I know those of you who are Christians don't believe in evolution, but science is science too. The Homo sapiens arrived on this planet when? Remember, we were Homo erectus before, so we evolved. When? Allah, science is science. Yeah? 200,000 years ago. Homo sapiens, our current species, have only been here for 200,000 years. Now, from that time up to now, how many Homo sapiens have passed through this planet? How many? How many Homo sapiens have passed through? Allah. What do you do in your free time? Niambie. Mnachunga tu watu. The Homo sapiens, those who have passed through this planet, are 107 billion. 107. The current stock, how many are we? On the planet? 8.4, roughly going to 8.5, the current stock. But those who have passed are 107 billion. Where did they go? Those who died, where did they go? You have no idea, Cindy. Are there any other species in any part of the universe? Are there any other species in any part of the universe? So far, there is no evidence, absolute no evidence, that there are other species in other planets, in anywhere in the universe. We have no idea. Now, how long does a human being stay on the planet? Average. What's the average life expectancy? 70. I think you guys, you're above average because you have a job. The average in Kenya is 64, but that includes the poor, who are the majority. Now that you guys mko wadosi kidogo, so you have probably a higher average. So let me give you 80. Average, is 80 too high? Will you live to 80? Yeah, okay, fine. So let's suppose now your life expectancy is 80, and the average age here is what, 45, 50? So you have how many years remaining? 30, average. So umejitayarisha? You're asking how? Yeah, I mean, you go to somewhere. The assumption is you go somewhere. We don't know. Yeah? Why am I asking all these questions? The first thing is, as a human being, try to figure out why you are here at this particular time. Okay? There is speculation. There's no science yet. There is speculation that your body has something different called a soul. And when they separate with your body, the soul then goes somewhere. Ask yourself why your soul is here in 2026 and not 200,000 years ago. Any reason? Those are very difficult questions when it comes to managing people. To understand why are they here at this particular time. We don't know. There's been a lot of research and why were you born at this particular time when your soul was attached to this particular body? And you are here for a very short period. 80 years is nothing compared to 14 billion years ago. We don't know, probably in another 50 years, or no, 50,000 years or 100,000 years, the current species will have evolved to something else. So what do you think the next evolution would look like? Have you ever speculated what the next evolution will look like? I don't know. We used to bend, now we became straight. So what do you think will happen next? We go this way. I don't know. So the message is, looking back and looking forward, we are just here in the middle for a very short period of time, and in that short period of time that God has given you, use it well. The purpose for which you are here is up to you. It can't be. And you as head of HR, you need to be emphasizing to people that define your purpose, why you are here. You are here for a short period of time. Use it well, and hope that your soul goes somewhere, probably reincarnate, or if it doesn't reincarnate, it goes somewhere to be stored, and probably it can come back in some undetermined future. I have no clue. So it is very important that when we look at managing people, we look at species transitioning over seasons and time. The planet, as we know it today, and the universe, is a very complicated place. In fact, when I read about it, I just wonder, then why are we here? The latest I read was about the galaxies. We are in which galaxy? Which galaxy are we in? What's the name of the galaxy we are in? The Milky Way. We're in the Milky Way. Okay? The Milky Way is traveling at incredible speed, expanding. The universe itself is expanding more than the speed of light. So, if you look at the Milky Way, how many planets are in it? How many planets? Just try to estimate in the Milky Way. 400 billion planets are in the Milky Way. 400 billion. When you see the stars, those are in billions. When you just watch the sky. Now, to travel across the Milky Way, you take 100,000 light years. Try to figure out the distance light travels in 1 year. That's 1 light year. Now, look at 100,000 light years to cross the Milky Way. Now, the galaxies themselves, okay, in the universe we know, which is only 95%, there are billions of galaxies. So, a human being, therefore, is a dot within a dot within a dot in a smaller dot. So, if you are here on a Jigamba and you are just a dot within a dot, so you are a human being, you are a dot in the planet called Earth, which is a dot, in the solar system, which is a dot, in the Milky Way, which is also a dot. So a dot within a dot in a smaller dot. So please eshimu binadamu and the person who created this, because it is just too complicated. Humble yourself. Let's manage these people within this short period. Na tushukuru Mungu. Sindio? Kabisa. So be kind to people, because we have no clue whether in the next life you will come out as a dog, the way the Indians say, or the way the Christians say, if you live here, you can go to hell. So forestall that by being kind, being nice. Let's manage these people, and they get happy, and they pass through their short life, and we say, hallelujah. Sindio? So let's protect people. So let's now come. That was just Kionjo. Okay. So, my little presentation. Okay. So, you have said that we are here to reimagine HR from a strategic point of view. So, let's just think of the key words. To reimagine is to rethink it. Okay? And to rethink so that we can redesign and execute a new approach. But in a strategic way. When we say something is strategic, we talk about that it is competitive. And competitiveness has two aspects. Either you are comparing yourself today compared to yesterday, or you are comparing yourself today in relation to your competitors. So that's when we say HR is strategic. We reimagine something so that then we are better off than we were yesterday, or we are better off from our neighbor. So that's the whole essence of reimagining managing people. But I told you a snapshot of where human beings came from. So we don't know. That 14 billion years ago, people ask, was that the beginning of time? Or what was there before time? We don't know. And probably we'll discover one day. So therefore, my message to all of you is, let us be humble enough to manage people, to produce at their best with happiness, knowing that they are on the planet for a flash, a little flash, and they are gone. Even you are here for a little flash, and you're gone. Let's humble ourselves. So, did you get it? Okay. Okay, so we are saying then HR is strategic. And anything which is strategic is competitiveness. It is competitiveness. That we must build people in organizations who are competitive. We must build people who are competitive. That they are better off than our competitors, and they are better off today than they were yesterday. Okay. Where's the link? It's your machine. Okay. So I want to begin by this tiny country that Kenyans are obsessed with. Okay? From the president to the lowest man. All of you talk about Singapore. How many of you have actually been to Singapore itself? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So, this country is the best demonstration of what a public service ought to be like. And I will mention some metrics about it. Singapore has become our poster child for what development truly means, what maendeleo is. So, let's look at 1963. In 1963, Singapore was not even a country. It was part of Malaysia. Because it was too tiny, there were Chinese immigrants at the port. And why that port is strategic is because it's a bottleneck. Okay? The Strait of Malacca. It's a bottleneck as goods move into Philippines, move to Vietnam, Japan, Korea, China. So that's why the British had a port there. So they left these immigrants and they left. Now they thought they were too small to survive, so they became part of Malaysia. In 1965, they got frustrated because the Malaysians were not moving at the speed they wanted. So they broke off in 1965. At that time, their per capita income was $350. The Kenyan one was 440. So look at 60 years ago, they were poorer than us. Fast forward to 2026. What is Kenya's per capita income? Kenya's per capita income? Allah, we are Kenyans. I know you are above average, so that one I know. But what's the average acclaimed? Kenya's per capita income is $2,400. So in 60 years, we moved from 440 to 2,400. That's only 6 times. The same 60 years, Singapore moved from 350 to, who can guess their current per capita income? 2026. $94,000. Top 10 in the world. $94,000. Look at a country like the US. The US is hovering around 60,000. Singapore is at $94,000. I think they are currently number 4 or 5 in the world. How did a country the size of Nairobi, with no minerals, They don't even have water. They don't have water. They import water from Malaysia. But have per capita income of $94,000. When a country called Kenya, who they were looking upon in the 60s, with 582,000 square kilometers, has only moved 6 times its income. That's a point for reflection. Remember at the beginning we said development is about people. So if you want to progress a country or a company, you have to build people. You have to build. So Singapore is a case study of maximizing the talent of your people. And it's not about anything else. It's not about prayers. Going these things of war and what do you call the other one in Afwen somewhere? Odera or something. This thing will not come by prayers, ladies and gentlemen. It will come when your people roll up their sleeves and work. That rolling your sleeves and working is known as employee productivity. Employees have to be productive. If you go to Singapore, those of you who have gone, there is somebody assigned to clean a street, and that becomes their KPI. I passed through Mombasa today, and I must say I'm totally ashamed as a Kenyan. Mombasa is totally broken. Completely. There are potholes in every street. There's takataka everywhere. So what's the purpose of a county government? What was the purpose of devolution? They have a payroll, but somebody on the payroll is not working. Surely. Our number 1 tourism destination, competing with Zanzibar, is a total mess. Nairobi is equally the same. Okay? And what happens when you guys got the ballot? Instead of choosing a manager, what did you choose? Mr. Dimples. Surely. Eddie ran anything. Sakaja had never run anything in his life. Zero. He even never finished university. Africa's premier capital. We take it. The second city is in a mess. People. If we are aspiring to be a Singapore, Singapore reduced their strategy for people into 3. Just 3 things. The first one is meritocracy. They said, if we want to progress, we must put our best people forward. If you want to progress. So, we need to start thinking, in your organization, do you put your best people forward? Do you recruit and put your best? If you want to be competitive, if you want to be strategic, you must put your best people forward. The second one, they call it pragmatism. You have to be pragmatic, which is essentially saying agility. That was another definition for it, is agility. There must be flexibility in the organization so that either you compensate people, you reward people in a pragmatic way. And then the third one is honest. It's a kind way of saying non-corrupt people. So the strategy was called MPH. Meritocracy, pragmatism, and honest. I want to challenge you as heads of HR and HR officers. What is your MPH? What are the 3 things that you are driving so that then your people become competitive? They have the highest productivity in your industry. The highest productivity. Because internally you are measuring many things. Your staff cost to income ratio. When you look at, say, our companies that are making incredible profits, from Safaricom to Equity to KCB, all of them, there's one metric they always track, which is staff cost to income ratio. Efficiency, tracking, making sure that you have your efficient people who are driving innovation, who are driving sales, who are driving costs down, customer service, everything. So that then you have the highest productivity. Remember, productivity is an input-output ratio. Less inputs, higher output. So that's what you're driving. So therefore, I want you to think today and say, how will my company that I work for, or that state department that you work for, how does it become competitive? And we are measuring competitiveness in 2 ways. How are we today relative to yesterday, or last year, or the year before? And how are we in relation to our aspiration? Kenya government has openly declared, this is our aspiration. In fact, when Vision 2030 was being written in 2006, the team that wrote it used Singapore as the model. And in the National Economic and Social Council at the time, there was a Singaporean who was sitting on it, called Victor. I sat with him, and he told me, you can ignore 1 and 2. Okay? But if you ignore the third one, honesty, you could as well forget about Vision 2030. That was 2006. So what did we do as Kenya, now that we are 4 years away from 2030? We ignored the H, isn't it? Tumesonga. Those of you who have read that Vision 2030, what does it say? What is the mission? The mission statement of Vision 2030 is a prosperous country with a high quality of life. So we are 4 years away. How are we doing? How are we doing? A prosperous country with a high quality of life. Tuko aje? Silent means we are guilty as charged. So, this Singapore story, we need to reflect on it today. It is our poster country of what is possible if we do things correctly. What is possible? When I saw the potholes in Mombasa, I was like, hey, kweli koshida. If I was sitting as a CEC in the government of Mombasa, county of Mombasa, I would be like, okay, what kind of city is this? Okay? Because this is our tourism jewel, the beach. The beach is for mass tourism. So therefore, you need clean streets so that then people can move around and spend their dollars. in the city. But every street that I came in Auba, every street is broken. I was like, hey, kweli kuna shida. But what is broken? What else is broken in our country? There are many things. Can we make sure that we do it correctly? Then the last thing about Singapore I'll mention is Singapore reached where it reached. These three things, and $94,000 per capita income by building a first-class public service. Okay? So let's go back to your basic economics. Basic economics. What's the difference between a public good and a private good? It boils down to that definition. What's a public good and what's a private good? What's a public good? Because that's the purpose of public service, is to provide public goods and services. Just Google. You have your phone. What's a public good? How is it defined? How is a public good defined? Allah. Heads of people. The basic definition of a public good is that good or service to which you cannot exclude other people. Yeah, you can't exclude. A road, for example, you can't exclude. We have to use it jointly. Water, a water dam, electricity. All those are public goods. So, for them, fixing the public service came first before attracting private capital. If you want Kenya to progress, we must fix our public service, which provides public goods and services. Anything which is common must be world-class. We must build world-class roads. We must have world-class availability of water, electricity, everything. Streets, clean streets, beautiful streets. That is the basic. And the country that's got this right in our region, although they are still very far in the journey, is Rwanda. Now, I'm sure most of you have been to Rwanda. Okay? What strikes you when you reach Kigali? What strikes you in Kigali? From the airport, it is clean, spotless. But spotless, that spot cleanness is not by accident. It's not through prayer. It is by assigning somebody and making sure that that somebody does it diligently every day. And there is a performance measure. I went to Rwanda and I was going to Serena, Lake Kivu. It's 150 kilometers from Kigali. There is no bump. So the driver kept slowing down. And then I asked him, why are you slowing down? He says, there are road signs there that says 40. So I must obey. Then he told me, I know you are a Kenyan. Then I said, because there is a street light for the entire 150 kilometers. So I asked him, all of them are up. None of them is knocked. How come? And he told me, you can see, a driver knows even the system. He told me, if somebody knocks, okay, there are cameras everywhere. We will know it's you, and from the number plate, you receive a fine from the government. Because you are the one who knocked. And you must pay within 48 hours. You pay within 48 hours, it triggers another SLA, service level agreement, which is the people who are supposed to repair get another SLA now that you have paid. And the thing has to be replaced within another 48 hours. So therefore, in 96 hours, the thing must be fixed. Naya Kenya je? You're told wait for the next financial year if you are lucky. That is a public service that works. So, in 2025, let me just give you the implications of that. Simple example. In 2025, Kigali city had more conferences than Nairobi. More conferences than Nairobi. Kigali at 37, Nairobi at 32. The major conferences. How can a small country, remember Rwanda is 4% the size of Kenya. 4%. In fact, when I was in KWS, I used to tell the warden for Savo, you are the equivalent of Kakame, because Savo is also 4% the size of Kenya. Can you imagine 4% the size of Kenya, but so tiny, their capital is not that big, but clean enough, and they assure guests that if you walk at 3 a.m. in the morning, you're okay. You're okay. You're safe. Now, we are holding a major conference in Nairobi. 30 heads of state in town. But our city is like a pigsty. And I was like, isn't Sakaja even embarrassed? Tumefika pahali hata aibu hakuna. So in your organization or your State Department, umefika hapo mpaka aibu. Your conscience cannot feel the shame. He knew. This conference was confirmed last year. He knew it was coming. But there was no, it's how. And it's not about money. It is just about managing people. That's it. Managing people. So Singapore, therefore, have a first-class public service, and that service, public service, are the highest paid civil servants in the world. Google, just Google, who is the highest head of government in the world? Highest paid. Just Google. Number one is Prime Minister of Singapore. So there was a trade-off. The government said, we will pay you, but make sure honesty prevails. So Lee Kuan Yew, the former prime minister, created a rule for ministers because they have a parliamentary system. So ministers go to parliament. Now, each minister, when you're going to parliament, you must wear white as a sign of fidelity. You wear white when you're going to parliament as a demonstration where we see mwizi. When do you think our public service will reach there? Yeah? Our public service. We need to reflect, because all of you are public servants, and we need to reflect. If we truly want to be a Singapore, let us understand what Singapore does, and we practice that. If we don't, it will just be another story, and we hope that Christ in heaven will drop a Singapore on us. It will never happen. Forget. A Singapore comes from the sweat of our hands. When I go to any institution, even any organization I go to, I use toilets as a measure of progress. Okay? I use toilets as a measure of progress. So whenever I come to your household, if I ever come to your house, I will ask to go to the toilet first. If it is clean, you can be sure I will take tea in that house. Kama ni chafu, I will create all the excuses on earth not to take a meal. Just that simple. So if I come to your organization, because I know most of you also in charge of administration. So if I come to your organization, how would you rate your toilets? 1 to 5. How many have 5-star toilets? Put up your hand. 5-star toilets. Which organization is that? Kasneb. You are my neighbor in Apail. I'll come. I'll come and check. 4-star? 3-star? 2-star? Okay. As defined by TRA, Tourism Regulator Authority, they rate stars. So 5-star hotel, that's what they mean. So there are certain specific things. A 5-star, as she's claiming, okay. So if you look at the cost of Kenya, they only rated 2 hotels 5-star. Okay, I think from Mombasa going north, they only rated 2 facilities 5-star. I can't remember the ones of South Coast. There are 2 facilities in Malindi, Medina Palms and Billionaire Resort. Those are the only 2 which were classified. Now that she has given me a challenge, so I want to go and check whether the toilets at Kasneb are actually similar to Billionaire Resort. She has given me a challenge. I will come for it. So I will report back the next conference. If you cannot clean toilets. So what did Rwanda do to deal with that issue of toilets? They made it compulsory by law that every citizen must wear shoes. It was about hygiene. So you must wear shoes by law in Rwanda. And 2, every household must have a toilet. Every household. So what are the irreducible minimums in your organization as we dream of Singapore? What are the irreducible minimums in your organization? Okay? So when I went to KWS, I used some Kaizen approaches. The basics of Kaizen are 5 things. There are 5 things in the basics of Kaizen. If you don't have those basics, you cannot aspire for bigger things. Because Kaizen is a hierarchy of continuous improvement. What are they? Number 1, which was then practiced in the Singapores, the Rwandas, the Koreas, everything. Number 1 is how things are arranged in your organization. Arrangements. Or in Kiswahili, you can call it kupanga. Kupanga. How things are arranged. It must be symmetrical, okay? It must be orderly. You can see order. Number 2 is sorting. How sorting things out, which are necessary, unnecessary things. They are put in a store in an arranged way. You can retrieve it well. Sorting. And that is the second K called kuchagua, how to sort things out. The third one is cleanness, how clean the place is, kusafisha. So that is the third K. The fourth K is maintenance. Maintenance, which is in Swahili is kudumisha. And the fifth K is kufundisha, continuous learning. So in KWS we call it the 5K program. And you will see if you go to KWS, in every notes board, that 5K is there. And they are supposed to. So it's 14 years since I was there. I hope they still practice. I rarely visit national parks these days. So 5K became then my motto of continuous improvement along this journey to Singapore. The Rwandese are exactly the same, practicing the same things continuously. Let's improve. Let's improve. Let's improve. So we call it the 5K program. Of those 5Ks, which one do you think is the most difficult? I call it the Kenyan disease. Which one of those 5 is the most difficult? Kupanga, kuchagua, kusafisha, kudumisha, and kufundisha. Which one is the most difficult? Correct. You know it because you are a Kenyan. That K called kudumisha is like a disease. We install a building like this and we forget about it. And it's like, but it requires a maintenance budget. Somebody must check to make sure that things are working the way it was designed. That's kudumisha. So, if you now let's look at all our public services. Okay? Let's begin with energy. KPLC. Where I live, there's a blackout every day. Without fail. It's like it's programmed. And that's Westland. Every day, without fail, there's a power failure. So, the CEO, Siror, was my student. So I called him and said, my friend, he told me, kuna shida mingi. You know, the transformers in that area are very old. Now he's trying to buy and, you know, it's a long story. Okay, so energy, kuna shida. Maintenance. Okay, let's look at City Hall, cleanness, cleaning the streets. Do you know how many employees Nairobi City County has on the payroll? 16,000. Do you see them? Those of you who live in Nairobi, do you see them? They are supposed to literally be a worker in every street to clean the street. Because they are on the payroll. The governor talked about devolving, so he created boroughs. So, up to today, I don't know who is the manager of our borough of Westland. He's never showed up. So I look at it and it's like, hey, our streets are not clean. So that concept of maintenance, we just don't have it as a culture. We do repair things when they are broken, but we don't have a culture of maintenance. Now that you are in charge of people, can you go and drum this thing into people's heads? The next EXCO meeting you attend, can you go and say, I went to Mombasa, I was told of some basics of Kaizen, the 5 of them, and we need to implement them in our organization. So, beginning with kusafisha the toilets. Do we agree? KSG Mombasa resolution? Kusafisha, let's begin with the toilets. Then, kupanga, arranging things. And then, you know, there's this thing, it was very common in the 90s. And when the Dream Team came, when Moi appointed the Dream Team in 1999, we were incorporated into it. That time I was teaching at the University of Nairobi. So we are incorporated into it and we were giving them ideas. So we said, let's not even talk about big things. In government, even the basics were not working. So if you were going to Treasury building, all broken chairs, where were they put? In the corridors and the staircases. All broken chairs. So we asked, why can't you sell these things? At that time, the Public Procurement and Disposal Act was not there. So there are no rules for disposal of these assets. So we asked, so who is going to create the rule? Okay, the regulations that says nobody knew. So it's like, okay, so why are you throwing them in the corridor? So that then I'm never quoted by the auditor. And if the auditor comes and says, where is this broken chair? Where is this chair? He says it's broken. It's near you. Nobody had the courage to even throw them in a dustbin. So, do we agree then that we begin our Singapore journey in every organization by you defining the basics that need to be done, so that when we talk about high-level HR things, the basics are done. You cannot ask people in an organization to aspire for great things if the basics don't work. You can't. They will just look, if you can't clean a toilet, how can you talk to us about nuclear energy? So like, oh, that is fiction. So, our journey to Singapore begins today, and it begins with basics. Okay? So, all these results will be achieved through people. The citizens of Kenya and their employees, the public servants, plus those who are in private sector too. All of us together, we have to reimagine how we manage people. So, why we must do this? The first one is rapid technological change. Technology is going at a pace that the world had never envisaged will change at that pace. Now, one problem that you guys of HR are facing is mental problems. Have you ever understood the genesis of that? The genesis is that rapid technological change. If you look at older literature about how human brains accept change, the research says human beings accept change gradually, and over between 5 to 7 years, they unlearn the past. That was 30, 40 years ago. 5 to 7 years. Now, your organization doesn't have that luxury of 5 to 7 years. Today, changes are happening even within 6 months. Now, the challenge was women can cope with that change. They have shock absorbers God gave them. Now, the problem ni wanaume. The men in organizations are not able to absorb the shocks. And that is the reason why mental issues affect male members of your organization. It's because rapid technological change. Like now we have AI. Put up your hand if your organization has an AI strategy. Artificial intelligence. Put your hand up. Already written, approved by the board or whichever approver in your organization. AI? Okay, so what are you waiting for? By now, you should have been implementing what we call RPS, robotic process automation. Any process that's routine, that should be managed by a bot, a robot, which is basically software that can perform that routine operation. So you will see, for example, anybody from Huduma Center? Anybody here? Huduma? Everything that Huduma does will be automated. Everything. Because the purpose of creating Huduma centers was such that routine things can be outsourced to a government agency that is public facing. In future, you don't need it. Everything will be done by a bot and gone. Now, as a head of people, how much knowledge do you have of technology and how it's evolving? Very, very fast. And then taking care of these male species who cannot cope with it. You know, the women, you know, the men say they gossip. It is their way of sharing. Lakini wanaume wananyamaza because they want to die kiume. In the process, they break down. Rapid technological change. Then, fiscal constraints. We don't have all the money that we need to do everything that we require. We don't have. Okay? Let me give you the budget for this year, 24-25. The national budget. Okay? We have only a month to go, 1.5 months, to the end of the financial year. KRA will collect probably 2.4, 2.5 trillion at best. Okay? Of that 2.5, how much goes to interest payments? Those of you who understand the budget cycle and how it works. Allah? Why you don't discuss the budget in your exco? If us in private sector look at how government spends, what of people in government itself? Interest payment. Forget about principal. Interest payment has now become the first charge on the consolidated fund. So of the 2.4, roughly, that may be collected by end of June, 1.2 billion goes to interest payment for debt alone. So half, 50%. So the other 50% is for everything else, payroll included. What is the payroll for the public service, the entire public service, per annum? You guys, what do you read? I want you to take an interest in the structure of the budget of the country. As HR heads of the public service, you need to have an interest. Because a large slice, the second slice, goes to payroll, personal emoluments, and benefits. You need to take a keen interest. It is 700 billion. So, first charge, interest, 1.2 trillion. Payroll, 700. So, total 1 point. And then fiscal transfers to the counties is what? 400. So, 1.9 plus 400. So, you have only taken care of 3 items. It takes you to 2.3. Now, if you are collecting 2.4, then you have only 100 billion for everything else. Everything. Electricity, 1M, vehicles. So what does Kenya government do? Borrow. So the rest is borrowed. That's why the budget is 4.1, thereabout. So you have a budget of 4.1 trillion and you are collecting 2.4. So what is the borrowing gap? The borrowing gap 1.5 trillion. That's a borrowing gap. So some of it comes from World Bank, some from IMF, some from bilaterals, and some from domestic borrowing. Half of that 1.5 trillion comes from domestic borrowing, which is around 700 billion, thereabout. Okay, sometimes it goes up to 1 trillion, depending on how IMF and World Bank behave. So if Kenya government is borrowing 1 trillion from the market, what is the opportunity cost? Opportunity cost in economics is what's the alternative? What would that 1 trillion that we are borrowing would have done in the domestic economy? Where would it have gone? There are so many alternatives, isn't it? So we borrow. And the first denial is credit to private sector. So that's why interest rates then are high. You must understand that as heads of HR so that then you drive efficiency, prudent use of public resources. You heard of people. Prudent use of public resources. For example, procurement teams, I'm told these days, can never evaluate a tender unless they are sponsored to go somewhere. You see how money is wasted? Even the slightest thing in organizations, they are never done in the office. So what was the purpose of boardrooms? Everyone these days, if you go to every public organization, everybody is chasing per diems. Everyone. You are increasing public debt. Your children watalipa. Your great-grandchildren will say, oh, you are head of HR in that organization that wasted money, and me, I have to pay this debt. What's our total stock of debt now? 12.8 trillion. Si lazima mtu atalipa. We must now be prudent managers and say fiscal constraints is part of us. Heads of HR must slam the brakes. It is not CFO. CFO, the first person to slam the brakes is head of people. We must reimagine HR. Rising citizen expectations. Now, because of technology, especially social media, any information today is available. Okay? If you want to know the P&L of government, go to Treasury website. It's there. All this information I'm telling you is in the public domain. It's in the Treasury website. Young people have access to so much information today, even about your organization. They know. So what did they do in 2024? It reached boiling point, didn't you? Now, those boiling points are going to be very many going forward. Very many. Doesn't matter who is president. All of them, they will be boiling. Because they have information available at the touch of a button. One day they will scrutinize your organization. I normally tell private sector companies, a lot of Gen Zs and the generations after them are very keen on ESG. Are you polluting the environment? So I tell them, jichunge. These people, they will organize a boycott of your products if they feel you are contributing to polluting the environment. So mjisot mapema. So similarly, there will be a lot of scrutiny by young people about your organizations. Prepare your people to do the right thing. You're the head of people. Okay? And then governance and accountability demands. Oversight institutions. We have a new constitution. We have not fully implemented it, but wait, one day it will bite. The controller of budget, the Auditor General, ESCC. There are so many control functions. I want to tell you, prepare your people. One day, watasukumwa. Please prepare them. It will happen. So the world is changing very fast. So the traditional way of doing things is gone. The lead is open. So prepare yourselves. Mjitayarishe. Prepare your people and say, we have a new constitution. There are greater demands. Technology is there. The money is not there. Citizens are more aware. So there are many things that are happening, but it's only the head of people who can prepare the organization. So, mjitayarishe. So, what does then strategic HR mean? Now that the world is changing so fast, a lot of information, okay? So, there are a few areas I want to just say kidogo. Number one is planning then for the workforce. Now, the mainstream public service, those who are in the central government, called the civil servants. And some of you are civil servants. You have a problem with workforce planning. Serious one. What has happened? The average age in the civil service today is 52. If you are in a country, what is the average age in Kenya? Total for the whole country, average. What's the average age for the whole country? The average age for Kenya is 19 years. For all citizens, the average is 19. The servants that serve them, the average age is 52. So what is a 52-year-old serving a Gen Z? That's a failure in workforce planning. The reason why even the retirement age moved to 60, from 55 to 60, was we were kicking a can down the road, which was pensions. I remember the late Dalmas Otieno, he was the Minister for Public Service. And he found himself in a crisis. So he said, let's extend. I guarantee you, even the current government will kick the can. Because they are already struggling to support pensions. So what is likely to happen? Move it to 65. You can see the ones for universities have been moved to 70, and they're even saying, let's go to 75. Because the universities have not been remitting pensions. So they're in a crisis. So it's like, okay, stay longer. So we pay you pension shorter because you will die. Workforce planning. We must have synchronized. Okay? Where I am in Jubilee, we have been carrying out a program for the last 3-4 years called Gensification. Even before this Gen Z riots. Gen Z-fication, which is we are trying to lower the average age in the organization so that our employees understand our customers, our emerging customers. So, if you remove the top managers, the CEOs, and their direct reports, the ExCos, the average age in Jubilee is 28. Can you imagine, in the public service you are at 52? Ours is 28. So we have deliberately lowered the age to prepare ourselves to have customers who are much younger. So guys, reimagine workforce planning. Manpower planning becomes a key. So then you are able to synchronize the skills, the attitudes, the cultures with the citizens because you're in public service. And it's the same for even private sector, exactly the same. So I would like to see over the years your gensification program. Gensification doesn't exist in English. So it's us who created it. So we could even register it as a copyright. Cindy. 2 is leadership development. The leaders. Okay? Now, we need to invest heavily in sharpening the minds of those who lead. Ideally, in any ideal setting in an organization, the leaders should be thinking 10 years ahead of the followers. 10 years ahead. Okay. So if you look at Kenya's public service, what do you think will happen in 10 years? Around 2035, 36 there. Or even 2040. Have you imagined how the world will look like at that time? If the answer is no, then I don't think you deserve to be head of HR. You need to be thinking 10 years ahead. The kind of skills, then you create a training program for the skills required. You look at the age profile. It means, for example, the Ministry of, what do you call that Ministry of Public Service? Yeah. I've not been thinking through until you find yourself the average age is 52. You have run, you don't have enough pensions. Those are also part of planning. But it requires leaders to think ahead. Yeah? So we need to do all those things. Then, talent management, training. The skills. Now, Kenya government is going to find itself in a crisis where you have old methods and old approaches in the public service to serve a public which is technology savvy. So that mismatch will lead to a clash. So make sure you prepare your organization because we are heading to a crash point, a clash. If you have read, there's a book called The Clash, Globalization and Its Discontents, and then The Clash of Civilizations by Samuel Attington. That clash between the people who are in employment to serve the citizens and the citizens themselves, where they are younger, and then you have a population which is older. So they start demanding, go and bring a document. Young people will look at you and like, sasa wewe akili yako ni sawa. Because they are tech savvy. So some African governments, probably Kenya is not too bad in digitizing government services. But there are some countries where they are probably 30 years behind Kenya. I'm sure there are some parastatals also who are old school. Then organizational culture. What is culture? HR people, what's culture? What's culture? Same or two? What's culture? When you go to a national day, and then people are beating drums and they are told, these are the Tharaka dancers. If you go to Tharaka, will you find somebody beating that drum? And they say, yeah, we are preserving our culture. The commentator. There's nothing like that. In English, that is called plumage. Plumage is an appearance. So don't confuse culture with plumage. Culture is three things. There are three things that constitute organizational culture. And the culture must evolve. Number one is the values. Values are those things which are irreducible in the organization. Irreducible minimum. Those are the values. And most of them are pasted on the wall. But there are no metrics to measure compliance. So can you go and make sure that everybody's balanced scorecard has values and how it's going to be measured? Then it says here, you're bringing culture into life. The second one is behavior. What is tolerated? What is right? What is wrong? What is bad? What is good? Behavior creates boundaries. If you go across those boundaries, umeotea. That's culture. And number three, it is habits. The rites and rituals of an organization. When employees come in the morning, what do? Like these days, if you go to any government board, the first thing people do is to pray. Sindio? That's a ritual. But do they mean the prayer when they deliberate? Kwa roho yao safi. So that's culture. So therefore, those three things must be operationalized in the organization. The values, the behaviors, and the habits of the people. That now constitutes organization culture. And that culture must evolve. Must evolve. Because there is nothing fixed. So if somebody comes to you and says, I remember when I arrived in KWS 2004, an employee, I can't remember what I did. I said something, and he told me, no, director, government doesn't work like that. I said, so who is government? That question is very hard to answer. Who is government? So he said, yeah, it's a practice around here. So I said, government ni mimi. I am the one. And we will do as I say. Because I am the leader. Okay? And if an auditor quotes me, it's fine. I've remembered. It was when I arrived, the director before me had ordered a custom-made BMW for the director from Germany, factory. It was 6 million shillings, and they had paid a down payment of 1 million. And they said, if you don't take the order, you lose the 1 million. That was the thing. So I was told government doesn't work like that. You must then pay. And this is an organization that when I arrived had a supplier debt. Forget about other debts. Supplier debt of 1 billion. Try to imagine what 1 billion in 2004, what it is today. So, nikasema, I'm not taking that order. We will save the organization 1 million. Let the auditor come and quote me. Okay? And even wants to charge me, I'm okay with it. I would rather pay this 1 million if they charge me, and I save the organization 5 million to pay all the suppliers on my neck. The auditor accepted my explanation, and I used that permanent as an example. I said, government ni wewe na mimi. We must make rational decisions. Up to today. Nobody has ever come back to me. So therefore, government ni wewe. Tumekubali? Government ni wewe. So you change the culture. Let the culture evolve. Then, ethics and accountability. Guys, this thing is in our constitution, chapter 6. I know it was reduced. It was longer. In the earlier drafts of the constitution, it was much longer. But when it reached parliament, parliament say, apana, Okay? So they changed it. So being ethical, and then of course, Article 10 of the Constitution. So Article 10 and Chapter 6 are very powerful statements on ethics and accountability. Then change management. Things must change. So the public service must have inbuilt agility, changing with the changing needs of the country, of the people, of the institution. You keep changing. And then performance optimization. Those are the things, in my view, that would constitute reimagining how the public service works and aligning it to the people. Because you serve the public. It's not the person. That's your customer, the citizen. Okay, so in conclusion, therefore, I would say just a little more of each of this, okay, as we talk about our road to Singapore. Okay, on paper, we talk about merit-based recruitment. On paper. I want to ask, why is it that we don't implement it? On paper, the HR manual is very clear. Merit-based recruitment. Can you rate yourself from 1 to 10? How are you playing this meritocracy card? Merit? 1 to 10? Where 10, it's perfect merit. Silence means iko kasoro. Sindio? I can see through your heart. Kuna shida. Sindio? If we want organizations to drive the country forward, let's bring the best talents. Let's identify them, put them on, acceleration program, look at the future of the organization. What talents do we require in the next 5 years, 10 years, and let us prepare the organization. You will be proud in your retirement that you left critical talent in the organization. Can you imagine the shame you will have when the organization you left and you are the head of people, you didn't bring in talent on merit to drive the organization to the next level? It will be a total shame. So as head of people, please, let us make sure we bring people on merit. I know there's a lot of political pressure. I had the same. When I was in KWS, I had the same pressure. But I told the politicians, if you don't like me in that office, let us talk. And they used to say, leave that one, Kichongumu. Are you a Kichongumu? Are you a head of HR who is Kichongumu? I'm aware ni mwoga. Kibaki did something in 2005 that it's quoted in many top circles in government as an act of courage. What he did was he was campaigning about the new constitution, and he went to Loitokitok. So the leaders of Kajiado were saying, if you want us to vote for, it was oranges and bananas. So Kibaki was on the banana side. So he said, if you want me to vote, the leader said, if you want us to vote for you, give us Amboseli National Park. Okay. So Kibaki said, niyo tu? He says, okay, nimewapatia. Remember, I was director of KWS. So, by evening, there was no social media those days. So by evening, media were now reporting that the president has given away Amboseli National Park, And for KWS, it is the number 2 revenue earning park. So all of a sudden, I was not going to have any revenue to pay salaries. So the leaders came to my office the next day. The chairman of the county council and his councillors. That's what they are named those days. So I said, I welcome them. I said, Karibu, we had tea. Then he told us, can we now, the chairman then said, can we agree on modalities for handing over? It's a presidential pronouncement. So I had the Wildlife Act, I removed, and I read for them section 7 of the act. The president, the exact words is different, but the president had no power to hand over a protected area. The law defined parliament as the house that can only have that power. So I read for them, and they said, Sharia ninin. President amesema. I said, okay, me, I cannot do it. Go, Father, when uko juu, let me get a presidential directive. It has to be in writing. That was a political statement in a rally. So they went to the head of public service in a huff, and they were like, the director of KWS has refused to hand over. Okay? So they were ignored, I think, for a week. And then me, I came on TV. I was in full uniform, and I read the sections, okay, and how it is not possible to be implemented. Okay? KTN gave it a twist. Okay? And the headline at 7 o'clock news that day was, Director of KWS defies the president. It was October. It was October 2005. So people now waited for me to be sacked. What else? Okay? I was never sacked. That story died. Okay? And it was only revived last year, 14 years after I left. And last year they succeeded. The same Kibaki, parastatal heads go for 6 years, and he gave me 9. So he kept renewing my contract. So people are like, hey, are you a relative? Please have some courage. You only live once. Yeah? So, merit. Please, let's make sure that we build talent that drives. In fact, after that defiance of that order, the employees were like, hey, leave this guy. Mjichunge. So me, I took advantage, and I said, I'm going to. So there was a time that my minister wanted to interfere with this because I was professionalizing everywhere in the organization. So he wanted to interfere by bringing in some people. So we had gone to Abadeas. Abadeas is completely fenced, 400 kilometers, the longest conservation fence in the world. So we were doing the last post. So the minister had some friends of his. And he said, when we were at that ceremony, he said, today I'm promoting, there were 5 people. He read some names. Because they have done a good job, okay? So, me, I was sitting there. He had not given me any forewarning. So me, I just kept quiet. But there was a statement that he added that irritated me. So he said, whether Kipng'Etich likes it or not. That was the last sentence. And that's the one that remained in my mind. So, he gave me the 5 names of the employees. I knew 3 of them. So it's okay. I told him, when a minister, there's a procedure in the organization of how employees are promoted. So we will look at it. Okay? So I brought it to the board. None of those 5 people qualified for the positions he gave them. Okay? And so the board passed the resolution, the HR committee, and said they are not eligible for promotion. Communicate to the minister appropriately. So I communicated to the minister, and it never happened. So what did he do? He went to the president, Sam Kibaki. So when he reached State House, Mudaura was called, head of public service. So the thing was investigated. I had all the documentations, the process, everything. Mudaura told me, you did the right thing. So he went and reported to the president, and nothing happened to me. Kichwangumu. So I'm giving you courage. Be a bit kichwangumu. Sindio? And nothing will happen to you. Nothing. See, I'm still here. I stayed in public service for 20 years. Kichwangumu. Have some courage for once in your life. Yeah? Merit. Ethical leadership development. You see, this Singapore thing, and this chapter 6 of our constitution, this is our bone of contention. If we have merit and ethical leadership, okay, I'm with some scientists who are modeling how Kenya can reach 10% economic growth rate. And let me give you the preliminaries of that model. We said our average growth rate now is 5%. That's our average growth rate. For us to reach 10, there are 5 things that need to be changed in Kenya. 5. Number 1, we called it citizen participation. Our citizen is very lazy. So we have to invigorate them. Okay? Let me give you an example. If you go to the village, okay, a typical male wakes up at what time? Just in the village. Just define a village. They wake up at 5, and the first thing they ask is, Changa iko wapi? You can't progress with a citizen who wakes up at 5. Others are waking up at 5 to go and slave, and others are going for Changa. So we need to streamline the work ethic of this citizen. Then number 2 is the executive. So amusharing the citizen will give us an extra 1%. Amusharing the public service, the executive, will give us 2 percentage points. You guys here, the executive, 2. And then parliament will give us 0.5. The productivity of parliament now is very low. They pass around 50 bills in 5 years. The world standard for an efficient parliament is 50 bills per year. So there's a long queue of over 300 bills in parliament, but because what are they supposed to do? The purpose of law is to facilitate the movement of the economy. And then judiciary, so parliament creates 0.5, judiciary will contribute 1. The reason why is investment is low in Kenya, especially FDI, because of backlog of cases in court. Disputes delay movement of capital. So if we just have an efficient judiciary, we will unleash 1 percentage point of economic growth rate. And then additional reforms, so will give us another 0.5. So in total, all of them will give us an extra 5 100 basis points, which is 5%, 500 basis points in economic growth rate. So therefore, the people who are looking at me here, you are inhibiting 200 percentage points, basis points in economic growth rate. Do you agree? One day, in the next conference, I will have completed the model and I will demonstrate to you why the executive, where most of you belong to, is inhibiting 2% economic growth. 2%. Kenya should ideally be having an economic growth rate of 10%. Our road to Singapore. If you just have a public service which is ethical. Chapter 6. So, why I'm saying that is so that you don't give me a CV. You are the one holding maendeleo. Succession planning, we have talked about this. Succession planning is critical. This idea of average age of 25 is killing us. Or 52 is killing us. You look at Japan. Japan is a very good example, by the way, of a country that aged and got stuck. 30 years ago, Japan had the second most powerful economy in the world after the US in 1990. That was the peak. Now, Japan has never had a positive economic growth. It's been zero for 30 years, non-stop. And the reason is there was no demand. Why was there no demand in the local economy? Because the birth rate and the death rate were the same. So there was no growth. No domestic demand. So Japan just got stuck. Now it has been overtaken by China, has overtaken it. India overtook it. Okay? And so Japan now is hovering around number 4 or 5. And it is estimated that by 2050, Japan might cease to exist as a country. So what do you think will happen? They are no longer having children. They have the oldest population in the world, 53. They are hovering at, the average is 53, the oldest in the world. So they have no children. You can't build houses, for example, because houses for who? Because when people die, they leave an empty house because they had no children. And they don't accept immigrants. What will be Kenya's population by 2100? The next 74 years. 160 million. 160. Have you ever planned for where will people, what will people eat? Where will they get water? Where will they get amenities? How big our cities will be in the next 74 years? Succession planning. Remember, you guys, you know, your great-grandparents had no record. Everything was oral. Now, your internet, your Twitter handles or Facebook, remember, is a permanent record. Sindio? So, all your generations after you will view your records. They will view your record. So when they review your record, they will say, oh, my great-great-grandmother, oh, this is the way they looked. Okay? And they try to recollect any literature and they realize, nothing. You are a coward. Look at Mukora. There was nothing you did. No legacy. So be careful. Make sure you post things on your LinkedIn because all your children after this will see it. Let it be a good record that you did something good. Sindio? And then finally, diversity and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion. Now, this is in law in Kenya. It's a desirable thing, and it's part of ESG. That S in ESG is this. It is possible to have merit and diversity and inclusion. Go out of your way to bring as many people, even from the most marginalized, so long as they meet the minimum criteria for merit. It's a good thing to do. Okay? Don't follow Trump. Trump is trash this. But he was playing a racist card because his constituency is white. So he trashed this and said, doesn't want. Diversity and inclusion is a moral obligation. See it as important that you bring in as many people as possible, so long as the caveat is they meet the minimum criteria. Because we call ourselves a country called Kenya. Okay? And probably the final one, I've talked about culture. There must be a pillar in your HR that supports culture. Okay? My recommendation is your title changes. What are you called now? Head of HR. That's old school. My recommendation is head of people and culture. Culture has become a very important emphasis. Head of people and culture. Because culture is a pillar of organizational growth. Those three things: values, behaviors, and habits. Okay? Values, behaviors, and habits. So you are the head of people and culture. So the next strategy meeting in Naivasha, and I know you'll go to Naivasha because of per diems. Yeah? Make sure you recommend to change the title to be head of people and culture as part of the reimagining, okay? So therefore, I can just conclude this, okay? Call to action. Africa is the youngest continent in the world. So the future is ours. Europe is aging. The country with the oldest population in Europe is Germany. The average age is 52. UK is around 45, and generally, Central Europe is around that much. Okay? The average age in Africa is 18. 18. So we have young people. We have a vast continent. Our landmass is 30 million square kilometers. Our landmass, which is 3 times the size of the US. The US is 9.9. We are also 3 times the size of China. China is 9.8. We are 3 times the size of Canada. So therefore, Africa is Canada, US, and China combined. Vast landmass. Then we have not talked about the mineral resources, the agricultural resources, the water resources. Those are also in plenty. So therefore, the future of this planet is Africa. And it's the first time that we have young people and technology meeting. So robust technology available to younger populations. So therefore, if Africa does not lead the world, akia Mungu mtaenda hell. Because God will say, I gave you an opportunity for the first time to lead the world, mkaitupa. So those of you who are saved, this is number 1. if you want to go to heaven, please lead the world. Africa has been given a golden opportunity. No, nothing else. Young people with technology. The rest are getting old and being phased out. If we don't lead the world, I'm certain if younger generations come to you and find you in heaven, they will do a petition. It's like useless. Okay? Effective governance, that is what is drawing us behind. To exploit all these resources God has given us, we want effective governance, and we grow at 10%. There is no reason why India is the fastest growing economy in the world. They are doing 8. I told you, if Kenya just fixes its governance, we'll go to 10. Automatic, we'll go to 10. Because God has given us the best climate in the world. So God must be looking at us and like, so what do you want me to give you? Yeah? And remember, we have the most educated black people in the world. Upper. Then, sustainable development, ESG, that we have talked about, improved service delivery, customer service, and then national transformation. Every country in Africa has vision this, vision that, vision 2020, vision 2030, vision 2040, others 2050. AU has vision 2063. Everybody is thinking of the future. My message has always been, it is so easy to imagine anything. We imagine vision 2030. That was very easy. What we never contemplated is rolling our sleeves to make it happen. So my message to you finally is, if we want productivity of HR in the 21st century and reclaim that future that God has given us, we must work hard, roll our sleeves, and make it happen. Peter Drucker said, strategy formulation is a commodity. Strategy execution is an art. What did he mean? What did he mean? Strategy formulation is a commodity. Strategy execution is an art. What did he mean? He meant formulating the future, which is a strategy, is the easiest. Anybody can imagine. It's a commodity. You can download. If I go to all your website, I will download your strategic plan. That's a commodity. Anybody can have it. The difference is execution. And that is why he called it an art. By calling it an art, what did he mean? It requires a lot of innovation and creativity. So I leave it to you. Let's reimagine the future because it is coming faster than we think. And let's execute because execution is an art. Thank you very much. Asante sana.